Hello, America and the world. Welcome to another episode of Life After Lockup. This is a program that is designed to show the public a different side of the criminal justice system, or should I say all sides, as much as I possibly can, of the criminal justice system, to show that there's a lot more to it, people just getting locked up and getting out and just living their lives. So it's a whole lot of different sides that sometimes the public does not see. Today we're having a very interesting show because we have Commissioner Richard Abraham with us that actually made a statement, and I kind of called him up and said, we got to talk about that. So here we are here today to talk about the statement that he made. Welcome, sir. God bless you, man. God bless you.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, you made a statement about the halfway house. I think that's what kind of got me kind of stirred up, because you were talking about some things that were going on, and you was wanting to shut it down, basically. So I need you to kind of help us understand what's going on in your mind about shutting down the halfway house.
Well, let's go back and give a little history.
Okay.
Keeton Correctional is the facility that we're talking about, and at the time there were absconders leaving, guys escaping. One guy stole a police card, headed down I-24, wrecked it. There was some injuries there, and then close examination, when you looked at the numbers within a 2-year period, possibly 3, the numbers were like exploding off the page of guys just leaving.
Okay.
First of all, I had to educate myself on exactly how halfway houses were set up, and what I found out was that it is the least secure facility in the correctional system, because these guys are like one step away from being free. So if you go to a halfway house, what you won't find is razor fences, guards walking around with guns and things like that. So I'm like, okay, but at the same time, there has to be a certain expectation of safety when a facility such as a halfway house is in a neighborhood.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, I think that's a reasonable expectation. So that kind of that was on the news. I'm like, wow. Then about a few weeks later, maybe a month or so later, there were some other incidents that happened over there. And unsolicited, I started getting calls because I made a statement about that initially. And then I started getting calls from these folks that were across the board, from medical staff, from ambulance people to citizens there in the neighborhood about just what was going on there. And then as a city commissioner, one of the first and foremost things that we take an oath to do is all about safety.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, so I really started kind of looking at it and looking at what was going on and the management of it. Right. So that kind of like died down a little bit, and then I got an email from Commissioner Bartleman from the county. Him, Scott Watson, and then Sheriff John Hayden were going to take a trip to Frankfurt to talk to Secretary Tilley about the problems we've had down here. So, I called Bartleman up. I said, man, you mind if I ride up there with y'all since you're going?
Right.
So we went up there and we met and we talked about, finding out a little bit more information about the facility. Private contractor, that'd be Keeton. If they're not doing things up to the conditions of the contract, then that's a problem. So I'm like, okay, all right. And then when we presented them with some of the issues that we're having, they were aware.
Oh, okay.
And it's almost like one of those deals when USEC was going through what they were going through out there, and you hear things like, when you start hearing things like acceptable levels. Like, for who? I mean, as far as you're talking about that, as far as like radiation, acceptable level, I don't want any. Right. I don't want any. So anyway, we come back, and one of the things that was going on too is that the directors over at Keeton wasn't letting us know when someone leaves.
Okay.
They're supposed to call KSP, which I get, and then KSP will call us. And so I'm like, why don't you call us? Call KSP, but we're right here.
Right.
And sometimes we wouldn't get a notice until hours. And that's, when someone leaves, they're leaving.
Right.
They're trying to get away.
Right,
And
exactly.
so when they walk away or stun or escape, depending, because there's parolees in there, and then there's guys still on doing time.
Right, exactly.
So there's different levels within the house. So, and it got to a point where it got really bad. And so I'm like, look, how long has this halfway house been here? This has been here since, like, I don't know, before I got here.
Okay.
It's been here a long time. And it just didn't pop up. There was a discussion with the commission and putting it where it is right now. And I don't know if they had any town hall meetings, bringing the public in on what they felt about. And obviously where they live, where they are right now, I think that property is owned by the church right there.
Right.
So I wasn't around for any of that.
Right.
So I was like, look, man, it's been here this long. We've served our time.
Okay.
So if this is it, if this is how these guys are managing this, then I don't want that here in Paducah.
Okay.
And I also made the statement, if we rewind this thing and we were looking for a place to put it, would we put it here?
Right.
And if we didn't put it here, where would we put it? Okay. I don't think a whole lot of folks be raising their hands like, put it here. So we went through that, and we had a meeting with the director at the time, and it was me. It was a sheriff, the new sheriff now. It was a police chief. There was the deputy jailer, which is the jailer now.
Okay.
We're all in down at the sheriff's office, and we're talking. And then I said, well, with all the programs that's going on in Keeton, the different, and when I say programs, at the time they didn't have a whole lot. I said, so what would disqualify one of these guys from not? He said, what do you mean? I said, what, with drugs, right? And this guy, he says, well, how much? I mean, you got the sheriff right here, you got the police chief. I said, well, he goes, well, I said, well, any. He said, well, I'm not gonna bust a guy's chops because he's got a couple of joints on him.
Oh my God.
I'm like, well, this isn't Colorado, man. I mean, weed is not legal.
Right,
Right. If a police officer stops you on the street right outside Keeton, and you got a couple of joints on you, you probably got some problems.
Right, exactly.
So this guy's since gone. He's not there anymore.
Okay.
And so we passed an emergency ordinance. But let me back up.
Okay.
I think this is when you may have heard this at the meeting. I was like, look, I'm ready to shut it down.
Okay.
I'm ready to shut it down, man. Because these guys, whoever managing this place, they don't care anything about us.
Wow.
Right? I wrote a letter to Frankfurt that was supposed to be attached to this emergency ordinance, letting Secretary Tilley and those guys know, what we're going through. I mean, they're in Frankfurt.
Right.
They're not here.
Right.
So these are and I mentioned the correspondence that I'd had up to that point from other folks across the community. Right. And
was it about negative?
Oh yeah. It was all these guys. This one lady said she came out one morning and this guy was sleeping in our car, and then there's a bus stop up that way, and by those guys not communicating with PD, as soon as someone is missing, you put a child on a bus, you're not going to check on them.
Right.
They're at school until you get a call. They ain't at school. Right. Well, what time is that? Well, they were out there at 6:30. So all of those things, and people start speculating, things get kind of scary. So you appreciate this part. So I wrote a letter to the Secretary Tilley, and it was supposed to be attached to the emergency ordinance.
Okay.
right? And I always share everything that correspondence. If I'm writing something, I share it with the rest of the commission.
Right.
Well, I sent that letter to, I sent that in an email to the rest of the commission. I took the hard copy and took it down and for it to be mailed.
Right.
Right. Well, fast forward, but the whole time I'm having conversations with Senator Curl about, he's supposed to be meeting with Secretary Tilley. I'm like, well, here's what's going on here.
Right.
Talk to the guy, see what's going on. Whole time I'm thinking my letter is already there.
Oh, okay.
So what I find out is that my letter had been on the mayor's desk for like 20-something days. All right? So we're having a commission meeting one Tuesday. I get an email from her about an hour and a half before the meeting, letting me know that things got kind of crazy. I meant to get back to you about your letter, and we can talk about it. Whoa. Whoa. Oh. Mama raised me right, because I was kind of heated,
I know
man.
you were. I know you were.
So we had that conversation. We had that conversation on camera that night.
Yeah.
Why'd you hijack my letter?
Right.
I mean, I wasn't asking your permission.
Right.
I'm trying to uphold what I swore I was going to do.
Right, exactly.
So anyway, so that thing went back and forth. And things kind of calmed down a little bit. Let me before this, let me back up. In the meantime, I'm working at Tillman. This is my 20th year. I work over at the trade school.
Right.
A friend of mine, Brandon, he's a welding instructor. And I was coming down the hallway. He said, hey, Abraham, let me holler at you a second. I said, what? He said, I got a buddy down at Fulton County, and they got a program it's a vocational program, and they're teaching guys how to weld that's locked up. And I was like, really? He goes, yeah. He said, you think that's something we could do around here? I said, well, you know what? It sounds pretty good. Let me holler at David. David Knight at the time was a candidate for jailer. And we had already had a meeting scheduled. So I talked to David. I said, man, look, this friend of mine over the trade school, he said, man, I would be very interested in that. Okay. So we had a meeting. We had workforce development person there. We had some folks from WKCTC there. Sergeant Ernie Puckett was there, works at the jail, kind of coordinating stuff. So we were all in there. Mike Gentry was there. He volunteers at the halfway house. I invited him to come. So while all this other stuff is going on, that's interesting because we had one of the guys from Secretary Tilley's office come down. He was like the vice chair of the correctional facilities across the state. Right. So he came down and we all met in the mayor's office out there, and he was talking about how there was nothing going on in there. There was there was nothing. And so prior to going to that meeting though, I was in the basement of City Hall. And I was going over to meet this guy and finally talked to him again. Before I left the car, I said, okay, God. I said, help me to hear what you want me to hear. I don't know, I don't want to be something that I want to make sure that I'm doing what I'm doing. And so we got in, the guy started talking about a bunch of stuff. And then he said this. He said, right now, there's no programming in there at all. We don't allow this. We don't allow that.
Don't allow?
There was no kind of like moral type stuff going on. Didn't allow any kind of non-for-profit church type stuff in there. And that was not only in Paducah. That was across the state. And I'm like, what? So then when I left, I get back in the car and I'm thinking, all right, if you're trying to get these cats out of here, what you doing though? I mean, they're right here. So that kind of opened up. So then I'll get back to this the vocational deal. So we go down, we look at these guys, and I met the guys that were in the class, talked to them, and this one guy, man, he was like, man, I didn't even know I could learn anything like this, right? And so when he gets out, he's certified welder. Right. So we came back within a couple of months. We had that going. So on every Wednesday over at the trade school, we got guys. It started out with 8 guys, and it's the 2 of them didn't make it, but the 6 guys they're going to graduate first week second week of September.
Oh, wow.
In the meantime,
Now, is this from the halfway house? Or
no,
from
no. This was at McCracken County Jail.
Oh, okay.
So what the plan is to fold those guys in from the halfway house into that program.
Okay.
Rob Estes is the new director over there.
Oh, okay.
He was over 17, almost 20 years on Paducah Police Department. He knows all the players. And this big old bust that they had here back a while ago, there were guys. There's bad people everywhere.
Right,
you can get in trouble when you're locked up. You can still get in trouble.
Right.
So, but he's really made an effort. Drug searches, all that stuff, and he's shipped a lot of guys out. So my thing was, okay, if it's going to be here, then we need it to be managed right.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I'm all about second chances, man.
Right.
And it's not that I was against the halfway house. More or less, I was against the way it was poorly managed.
Okay.
It was poorly managed, and so if it's poorly managed, then if there's no expectations in there, these guys, first of all, they were just sitting around. They weren't doing anything.
Wow.
The volunteers, there's some non-for-profits out here that like Starfish and some of the other places that use these guys, their talents to help do this or do that. But as a whole, there was no type of curriculum. Nothing's going on there, man.
Okay.
And so Rob's twisted all that around.
Okay.
The guy that came down here, his name Edwin. He came down. He's no longer with the correctional system of the state. He was terminated.
Okay.
He was terminated. I'm thinking, I don't know what all was tied up with that, but some of the information he gave us was not correct. So, but now, and I made this statement the other day when I got interviewed about Keeton. That article was in the paper about the guys being indicted, the feds, and all of that. And so they hit me up. Well, you've been you were like want to get rid of it. And I said, if it's going to be here, then Rob is the guy, and he's done a great job of
revamping,
keeping that standard where it is. So this is what we're doing.
Okay.
If you're going to be here, and so along with the education part, we can fold those guys into what they're doing. They're going to start a program where these barge companies, they're looking for deckhands.
Okay.
And these guys are putting together a replica out there so they can practice.
Okay.
To do that. So when they get out of jail, you can weld now, man. You can weld, you can make money.
Yeah, buddy.
So I kind of came full circle on it.
Okay.
I was like, no. But now, if it's going to be here, let's run it right, and then try to give these guys some opportunities.
Okay. And all of that is so great to know, because I was kind of like thinking that you just didn't really understand what was going on with freedom or with incarceration and blah, 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 because me being an ex-offender, a halfway house is an incentive.
Right.
To try to get to. But like you said, if it's not run correctly, then all those guys are going to do is get in there and find an opportunity to mess up.
It could be it could be a stumbling block for you.
Yes.
Where it meant to be an asset.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm with that. And man, so now I'm like, okay, so whatever we can do, if a guy wants to turn things around,
right?
If he wants
to,
then those of us that can create opportunities for them to do that, then here it is.
Right.
You got to want to do it.
You got to want to do it.
But it's here. And the program gets to be bigger than the person, because you may not make it, but this guy over here,
right?
It's like, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of that. And that's where we are right now, man. And I think the plans on that is to extend that to culinary. We got some nice restaurants down here, man, and we got people that own those and that manages those that would love to, I know they would love to give back.
Right.
To a group of individuals that really want to learn what they love to do for a living.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Do you feel like now that you've kind of gotten your hands in it and your comments about it, that it's either beginning to turn around or that it's turning around?
Well, it's like this, man. The facility is here, and if it's run, you still got people that live in the neighborhood don't want it there.
Okay, I can understand
they're like,
that.
look, why is it here?
Right, I can understand that.
We all stay vigilant. There's going to be some people that come there that's transferred to some other place, don't want to be there, and they're out and they're going to raise some kind of sand.
Right.
And you deal with that.
Right. Right.
But at the same time, if you have some programs, if you have some folks that want to volunteer, and these guys are taking advantage of it, that's what it's supposed to be. Rehabilitation.
Right.
All right, let's offer that to you. And as long as things stay like that, then it's cool. But again, our first and foremost is safety.
Right.
And when that becomes a problem, then it's a problem. And you're going to have to deal with it.
Exactly.
So
now, do you feel like that, as far as the percentage is concerned, that maybe is a greater percentage that are doing okay, and a lesser percentage that are escaping and messing up?
You and I both know. Typically, you can go to a school and the majority of students are doing fine.
Okay.
But you have like that 1%, man, and it's a lot, of problems.
Right.
I mean, whether it's home life or just always into something, and maybe there's some emotional issues, and it's like any place else. I know that there are folks the guys that are in the halfway house are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But then you have guys that come in there and looking for an opportunity to get out, and then raise hell on their way out. And so a guy that will walk away from Keeton here, maybe raising hell in Carlisle County, and where'd he come from? Paducah, So it's always you kind of like work there like a clutch on the heel, man. There has to be some balance there, but on the inside, you have to be consistent with what the standards are. Right. And then where to get out. Because I talked to a guy once, and he was like, man, guys don't want to come to Paducah because there ain't nothing there. They don't want to, so facilities like that are bed driven. If there's an empty bed, because the system is like it's going to start building more prisons because it's overpopulation problem in the state.
And it's a big money thing too, anyway. So
Yeah, it is. It is. So communities are like, okay, so we have the halfway house, and so if it's going to be in a community, then let's look for opportunities to make it work. To make an opportunity for these guys if they want it. Right. Now, if you don't want it, then I can't force it on you.
The thing about it, the way I feel like, if you find out that they don't want it, ship them back to prison.
Yeah.
Ship them back. I mean, because it ought to be an incentive, ought to be an opportunity. It ought to be a way for you to slowly get your freedom back, but it has to be gained.
Yeah.
And if we see from the inside that these guys are not doing right, 2 joints, that's too many.
Yeah,
1 joint is too many.
Well, check this out.
Smoking weed.
Not only that, but I found out that some of the people that work there was taking advantage of situations.
Of course.
Got guys out there working on your car.
Right. See, and
that's unethical, man.
All of that needs to be organized better. Somebody from the outside needs to be policing the police.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about Rob is that all of that stuff is no. This is the way it is. This is the way it's going to work. I'm not going to tell you when I'm doing a room search. We're just going to do it. Find something, you out, you're gone.
That's good.
So yeah. But somebody has to come and set that standard and hold everybody to it. And so far, he's doing that, and I mean that's all you can ask for in a situation like that.
Well, listen, I am so glad that we're talking, because it's helping me to understand and maybe what Christ Temple or what I can do as an ex-offender to even help some kind of way, because that's what I want to do. I want to try to help if we can, but we need to know where everybody stands, and I'm glad that I know where your heart is.
Yeah. What was that meet every Tuesday?
It's called the Lifesaver class.
Yeah.
And it's every Tuesday, 11:30 to 12:30, and I even got a book that got all the classes in it.
Right.
So if people want help, I would love. I think I even went down there to tell. It was before this new guy got there. Let them know what we were doing there, but nobody ever came.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure you get that information.
Okay,
because he wants to. He wants to reach out back. He wants to reach back. So that'd be a good thing.
That's great. Well, listen, our time went by.
Wow, that was fast. Man.
It went by, man. I have gotten an understanding.
Yeah, I'm glad we can square that up.
And I'm hoping that I can be of some help, like you have been a big help to those guys, man. But our time is up, and I want to thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I want to thank you for watching Life After Lockup, and you have a marvelous day.